Greetings to everyone around the world who have caught us today for our show Ichi-go Ichi-e. Now, when we have first started 11 episodes ago, we started our intro by giving a little overview of what the meaning of our title stands for. This old four-character Japanese proverb called Ichi-go Ichi-e means one time, one meeting. How no matter how many times we meet with one person in the same place possible, the encounters are always unrepeatable. They are irreplaceable. This represents the cultural concept of treasuring moments that are never to occur twice in our lives. Because upon pondering, we truly figure out that's how life is at the end. Compilation of moments that do not happen more than once, regardless of their impact. And that actually has been our journey here in Team Bertho and also in Ichi-go Ichi-e. We had this incredible opportunity to not only meet but also to connect with so many people across the globe and learn from their stories and experiences. We had the blessed chance to connect with you, our audience, who are with us now in the 12th and the last episode of season 1 of our live conference show Ichi-go Ichi-e, brought to you by Team Bertho and Yes Girls Movement Bangladesh Girls Guide. We hope that we were able to present the valuable and close to life insights about growth, self improvement, skill development, and awareness that we promised to deliver in each episode. We hope to deliver that today as well. As I have said recurrently to our regular viewers who have been with us through this journey in every moment, it's always good to have your presence among us. And to the ones who are listening in or watching on YouTube, welcome back. It's the last episode of the season. We are already halfway through the season. And as the series finale is airing, who could be a better guest than someone whose ventures and enterprises are all about bringing out people's stories and create this inspiration and raise awareness amongst society? Awareness Ties is a US based platform that stands for an official symbol of support for causes, and their mission is to support causes by elevating awareness and providing sustainable resources for positive social impact. And today, the guest of our show is the founder of Awareness Ties platform and the editor in chief of AwareNow Magazine, Allié Merrick McGuire, and she is going to talk about the power and potential of storytelling. And the title of today's discussion is Can a Story Change the World? So, without further ado, let's welcome Alli into our show. Hello, Alli.
Hello, hello. Thank you for such a beautiful intro.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here, and thank you very much for complimenting the intro. So, how was your day today, and how are you doing?
Good. There's never enough coffee, so we're still doing that. But no, today is a beautiful day. I woke up today when other people haven't. I feel blessed. I feel thankful and excited to share this space with you and everyone who's joining us.
Well, that's very beautiful. And so we have this little glimpse of what you are and what you do from the story that you shared with Team Bertho. But is there anything that you would like to share with the audience before we progress into the topic of the discussion? If you would like to share something about yourself.
Yeah, first and foremost, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your voice. And for all the voices that we have the pleasure of recognizing in the work that we do. For anyone out there, just to give a bit more background about the work that we do, it's a lot of things: magazine, podcast, talk show, all the things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to one thing, and that is the story. It is raising awareness one story at a time, like you understand, and many people do, and many people are starting to realize, is the value of a voice. And so, what we do with our platform is we try to provide a stage for these voices to be seen and heard. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Thank you very much. And the work you do is absolutely remarkable. I mean, the website and the segment about the awareness and the causes that you are trying to raise discussions about all over the world. That is very remarkable. And we hope that you reach to the point where everyone is aware of what aware now or awareness ties is actually all about. And all the best for your future endeavors. So I'm not gonna hold you long for a long time. So I'm gonna handle the reins to this discussion into your hands. But before that, I want to say to the audiences, you if you have any questions for Ali today, you guys can write down your questions in the comment section, and then she's going to answer them in the Q&A session of our show. So Ali, now it's completely up to you. You can conduct the session and the discussion and the speech the way you please.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I made a couple of notes, and so I think I'll start with those. Um, you know, can a story change the world? It's a big question. And what is the answer to that? I don't know. Can one story change the world? I don't know. But what I do know is that one story can change one person's world. How do I know that? Because one story changed mine. In fact, many stories have changed my world in many ways. So let me get started here by just allowing me to share just one. Title: Delilah's Diagnosis. Subtitle: The Reality of Rett Syndrome. Exclusive interview with Cecilia Baker. This is found in the Thanks edition of AwareNow Magazine. So I'm going to begin this story with a story about the story and how I came to hear it. I would never have heard this story had it not been my diagnosis of MS. It was about a year ago when I lost vision in my right eye that I received my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. That was confirmed by an MRI identifying a number of lesions on my brain. So, what did I do after I got my diagnosis? I did what anyone would do. I got online, started clicking away on the keyboard. For conditions like these, you need a community, yeah? On Instagram, I instantly found one. It was one hashtag MS, that led me to many connections that quickly formed a family for me. It was one such family member, Cecilia Baker, that led me to another hashtag Rett. As it turned out, Cecilia and her husband both had MS. Their daughter didn't, but she had something else. She had Rett. I scrolled through Cecilia's feed and the photos of her beautiful, nonverbal daughter in her wheelchair with curly, dark hair and bright blue eyes were always marked with hashtag Rett, hashtag Rett syndrome. I had no idea what it was. So before I asked her, I looked it up. Upon finding out that it was actually a very extremely rare genetic disorder that was treatable but incurable, like MS, I asked Cecilia if she wanted to share her daughter's story. After all, if I hadn't heard about Rett, perhaps others hadn't either. With thanks and appreciation, she agreed to do an interview in AwareNow Magazine. In that interview, there was one particular question I asked and one particular answer she gave that I will never forget the rest of my life. My question: what is the hardest part about being Delilah's parent? Delilah, her daughter. My question was met with her answer, which was this: when I wake up in the morning, I don't know that she will. As it turns out, Rett is often referred to as a silent killer. I share this story for a very important reason. It's the very reason my husband Jack and I started Awareness Ties. I don't have Rett. Jack doesn't have Rett. None of our 6 children have Rett. And yet, does a story about Rett syndrome affect me? Absolutely. It changed me. And my hope is that it changes you too. As change is the only constant, let's constantly change for the better with the gifts we are given. Her story was a gift for me. It is now a gift for you to gift to another, I hope. So here's the thing. Awareness Ties is a stage we built to share these gifts. Developed for stories to be seen and heard, our platform, AwareNow, is designed to raise awareness for causes one story at a time. Through our magazine, podcast, and talk show, we create connections through causes. It's all for one and one for all. All causes for one platform for all causes. Why all causes? When Jack and I first started all of this, we were told we were going the wrong way. The right way was to choose one lane and to stay in it. Choose one cause and support it. We disagreed and decided to go our own way. Instead of taking center stage with one cause and one voice, we would build one stage and offer the spotlight to many people with many voices, to share many stories about the many causes that tie us all together. So why all causes? Because we're all human. It's the human cause that connects all the causes and all of us. As Maya Angelou, one of my favorites, said in her poem, A Human Family, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. That like thread that stitches our humanity together in a quilt of causes is that of empathy. Sewn into our very fabric of being a human being, empathy is that element that allows us to not simply look at one another, but see one another. There's a difference. And there is no better system than storytelling, the most ancient and enduring medium of communication to produce, package, and preserve empathy. So, simply stated, stories supply us with empathy. Our content for our various causes is a conduit to our humanity. So, perhaps you've heard, many people have, content is king. Content is king, quote unquote. Whenever I hear these words, content and king, I think of a particular king and how he used the word content. Perhaps you've heard this as well. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Martin Luther King Jr., 28th of August, 1963. There's what you say, then how you say it. The meaning of what's said depends on how you convey it. So we have our content and then we have our context, right? And while my words tend to be poetic, I try to make them also pragmatic. So when selecting the right word or words, you've got to consider not only what you want to say, but also what you want heard. There's a balance needed between pretty words and practical terms. And pretty and practical aside, words make stories, and stories make impact. Let me pause a moment. I want to go back for a moment. Martin Luther King. So what I just shared for you, let's talk about the content there. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. That, and now this. I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I just said the same thing, but I said it 2 very different ways. The impact of our stories, the impact of our content will only go as far as how it is seen and heard, how we package it up, how we deliver it. And so the work we do with Awareness Ties, AwareNow Magazine podcast, we take that into consideration because we feel we have to. We need to. For these stories to be seen and heard, they have got to be delivered in a particular way to where their particular intention can be realized. So back to where I was a moment ago. Stories making impact. Can a story change the world? Let's get back to that. I'd like to share 2 stories that illustrate the conversion of awareness to action through form and through function. One is about an athlete. The form of his story came as a ball. The other one is about an Afghan reporter. The function of her story was to share the truth that ultimately set her free. So let me begin the first story about Try. Try-born. Here's a picture of him here. Try, I don't know if you can see there. There you go. This is Try over here, his daughter. Here you see him. He's signing one of these volleyballs provided by Wilson. So the story here about Try. Try is one of our ambassadors, one of our official ambassadors for Awareness Ties for invisible disabilities. So I'm going to tell you a story about a story because that's kind of the way I like to share things here. So the story about Try, how do we even come to know Try? We were actually staying at an Airbnb in LA. And the fun thing about Airbnb is that, you get to go into someone else's world, in essence, someone else's home. And not that we were being snoopy about anything, but we did see a number of photos and pictures on the walls. Wow, these are really cool people. They do some really cool things. We saw like a podcast sort of set up. I'm like, what is this person's world about? We saw volleyballs everywhere. Fabulous decor and design. Looked quite very much like the style of our own that we appreciated. And we felt just a little bit connected, like their home felt like home to us. And, so generally we wouldn't do this, but we did. We reached out to the host and said, hey, we really interested just to know a little bit about you and what you've got going on and what you do. And that's how we came to know Try and Gabby Bourne. And through just a conversation that started with us staying at their house, we got to know one another, and they got to hear about what we were doing. We got to hear about what they were doing. And they actually both became ambassadors for Awareness Ties. So Try is a professional beach volleyball player for the AVP. He just actually got back from the Olympics in Tokyo. And so the story with Try, and why I bring this up, is that I go back to this ball, right? I said his story is about a ball. How can a story be a ball? How can you hold this and be holding more than a ball? Can you be holding a story? You can. It matters how you go about telling that story. And so what we did, we made a little card with a picture of Try, his beautiful daughter, picture of Try signing these balls. And on the back, we have just a small, short little story. And you can see there boldly, it says, hold on to hope. That's Triborn's signature there. Let me just read this to you. When holding this ball, you're not holding just a ball, you're holding hope. Hope is what Tri held as he fought through his invisible disability to make his way back to the court and an AVP championship. Hope is what Tri and his friends at Wilson, supplier of these balls, and Awareness Ties are sending to you. His short, sweet story about how he fought through his invisible disability to make his way back onto the court, that story is held here. It's a symbol, a sign, a statement, and one that you can hold. What Tri did is he signed 100 of these mini volleyballs that Wilson so generously donated. And we created these cards with these stories and had them sent to the Los Angeles Children's Hospital, where the kids who couldn't make it, hey, if they couldn't make it to the beach, maybe we could bring a little bit of the beach sort of feel and fun to them. And so 100 of them were brought and shared. So sharing a story in the form of a ball. There's lots of ways to share stories. And so the impact that made brightened a few days, I suppose. It made a difference for a few kids there. If it gave even just one a bit of hope that they could make it back, that they could make it out of bed, that they could make it out of the hospital and back onto the beach, then our job was done. So this other story that I have about an Afghan reporter. So here's how that goes. Just after the Taliban took control of Kabul, I was introduced to a producer in Germany who had an introduction of her own she wanted to make. She wanted to introduce me to a young female Afghan reporter who's currently in hiding and wanted to have her story heard. While it wasn't safe for her to be seen, she wanted to be heard. And I agreed to not only hear her story, but also to share it. After a single phone call with Mayor Mursal Amiri that ended in tears shared by both of us, I was connected. I was committed to helping her. While she quietly hid in Kabul, moving from safe house to safe house, at first by herself and then with her family, as they were in danger because of her association, Jack and I did what we could here in the United States. We shared her story in our magazine and podcast. Beyond borders, her story traveled and was heard by millions. Upon sharing it with our ambassadors and columnists, one of our columnists, Lori Buteres, was particularly moved, as she had served in the military and had been stationed in Afghanistan years ago. She wrote a poem. It was called I Am a Million Voices. I shared that poem with Mare. While in hiding, she recited that poem and shared that reading with me. I took Lori's words and Mare's voice, added a few visuals, and made a video. That video was seen by the right person. And it's a good thing, because she was on the Taliban's list. She was a target. Her family was a target. Because of the video seen, she made it onto another list, an evacuation list. She and her family made it out. The video that came from the poem, that came from her story, saved her. So can a story change the world? I don't know. But can a story change one person's world? Yeah. Yes. So with Awareness Ties, we've must be over 540 some stories that we've shared. in the course of 20-some editions of our magazine. Each and every one of those stories has created a change, created impact. And it's not just the person who is reading the story or hearing the story. It's the person who's sharing the story, who's writing it, who's recording it. There's this exchange of energy. So it's the giver and the receiver both are impacted in different ways. And it's that energy that is inspiring, that is required to create the change that we want to see in this world. I want to talk for a moment about format, because we talk about form and function, right? There have been people who have asked questions such as, well, why are you doing a podcast? Why not just do the magazine? Just podcasts are trendy, or well, yes, they are quite trendy. But why the different format? We weren't going to do a podcast at first, you know. We were actually just going to do the magazine. And so why the podcast? It's interesting what happens in the face of adversity. What can be created because of the challenges that we face. I had mentioned before, I told you about my multiple sclerosis. And again, that diagnosis came to me just over a year now that it's been. My sister has had MS for over 20 years. So another story here for you. Why a podcast? Does it have something to do with MS? It does, actually. I reached out to my sister with a phone call. I said, hey, I'm going to send you a link to this incredible article that's going to be in our next issue. It's amazing. It's about MS. It's really going to inspire you. And she started crying. I said, well, why are you crying? I mean, you're going to cry because it's really, really good, but why are you crying right now? And she said, because I can't read it. She was battling with a flare-up with her MS and was having troubles with her vision. She couldn't read the words. And her crying translated into me crying. And here's where it gets cool. I said, well, if you can't read the words, let's make it so you can hear them. And that's where AwareNow podcast came from. It was a matter of necessity. It's because it was needed, right? It's you see a need and you fill it. That's the way things are supposed to work, right? Because she couldn't read the words, I became instantly dedicated to making sure that she could hear them. And so AwareNow podcast, what it does is we take the stories in our magazine, we lift them off the pages, we record them and produce them as podcast episodes. So same story, different format, but still the same function, to raise awareness. One story, one episode at a time. Let me skip to another thing because it's just kind of fun to skip around, isn't it? The value of your voice, the value of your story. Please note that when you're evaluating the value of your voice, of your story, that it's not something to be compared with anyone else's. So of these 500 and some stories that we've shared, each one of them has touched me very deeply. I have one of our contributors, one of our columnists say, Alli, I had a story. I don't think I'm comfortable submitting it. I said, well, why? Is it too personal? Is it too close to the vest? Or like, why are you uncomfortable about sharing it? I said, well, because it's really not, it's about an issue I have, but my issue, it's compared to the other issues that you guys are talking about. It's just, it doesn't really matter. It's not that big of a deal. And I had to stop her there and just say, but it is. I mean, if Einstein was right with his whole theory of relativity, that all things are relative, then absolutely every story is too. And just because it's not as big an issue or hard an issue as someone else's might be, it doesn't discount its value and its importance. In fact, perhaps it makes it more important to validate for other people that even having a smaller issue, it's okay to share it. Yeah. Sharing is caring. We do that with stories. We do it one story at a time. Um, I guess that's what I have to share with you today. So when we go back to that original question that we started with, can a story change the world? Maybe not the whole world, but certainly someone's. That's what I have for you today.
Thank you very much for this incredible discussion that you just held and the stories that you shared. It moved me so much. I was speechless. I mean, totally kind of at loss for words. I mean, what you said about actually that sharing is caring, and one thing that is very remarkable about this is that raising awareness and activism is not an easy task. It's very hard, and it needs a lot of bravery to actually share one story in the first place, and then trying to create the platform and then present and exhibit these stories to other people. So that is I appreciate and admire you very much for doing this work.
Thank
and
you.
uh, and and another thing that that what you said about one people have struggles which are bigger than others, but not validating their struggle is not going to eliminate the difficulty that they face, but
Mhm.
sharing it with someone and being in a relatable conversation and having some insights about sharing these stories, that can actually help that person deal with these difficulties, but invalidating them doesn't. So thank you very much. Thank you
Mhm.
very much for doing it. And wow, and the stories were very, very moving. It touched me very deeply, as I've heard from your voice. And you have this incredible way of sharing your stories. Your voice has carries this sense of empathy, and it's beautiful. So we're just gonna jump
Thank you.
into the question answer session, if you allow us.
Sure, sure, sure. And thank you for your kind words. Thank you.
Uh, So our first question is from Mubashira Ishika, and she asked that it's hard to get that start when you are intended to write a story on something. What you usually do in that time? It's
Hmm.
probably she's probably talking about documenting a story or like that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. And been there, done that. I wrestle with writer's block quite a bit. I think the biggest thing is to not force it, but rather allow it. And that's a concept that Jack and I have applied to everything we do, everything from content creation to platform development. Anytime we try to force something to happen, it doesn't usually happen the way it's supposed to. And so, my advice would be to set it down and let it sit and then come back to it. When you try to force something, it's just not the natural way of it. It's not, it means it's probably a sign from the universe that it wasn't meant to happen right then and right there. And that the moment that you let go of that need to create and rather allow yourself to do so when you feel that it's right, that's the best way to go about it. It's unfortunately one of those things that you can't force. You can only allow. So yeah, don't force
Like
it, just allow it. Set it down and let it sit.
let it happen organically. Don't try to make it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny that you say organically because we have a rating with everything that we do, all of our stories rated O for original and organic content. And so
Yeah,
not only the content itself, but the curation of it, right? That it all happens in a very organic way, nothing forced or, yeah.
and I think that's why it brings out the best from the within the people. I mean, you get to deliver the best when you are ready, and when the
Yeah.
story just flows from you. So okay, I'm just before we jump into the next question, I want to ask one thing. Is there, like you mentioned something about columnists, like there are other writers and columnists in your magazine. So do you you're the editor in chief? Do you do most of the writings still now, or like do you only do the cover pieces?
It's about, I would say, about it depends on the edition. Either like a third to a half of it um, is what I work with in terms of, I do a lot of the interviews. And so that I have a big hand in, but then we do have the contributions from our contributors that come. So it's a group effort.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing that. So
Mhm.
we're going to jump into the next question.
Yeah.
It's Kanich Fatima Promi. She asked that, is it only me, or at times podcast pulls out more emotions than book does?
Oh, I love this question. And I quite agree very much, actually. So before I got, well, way back, long time ago, when I got started in the world, I started out as a poet. I was a performance poet. I would go into schools and classrooms. I would recite the classics, The Raven, O Captain, My Captain. And I fell in love with the art of speaking. And so this question about, the emotion and more of it that comes from these different formats for a podcast, for example. So what's different? Same story, but you're hearing it and not reading it, right? And the difference is, in my opinion, I feel like there's another layer. There's more depth that's provided because it's not only the words, but it is the manifestation of those words. It's you're taking those words and you're adding a layer of emotion with your voice, with your intonation. Um, and this is really interesting because you're adding another sense, right? There, so we can see things, we can read them, but then we can hear them. And so adding this other sensory layer to it absolutely can pull out much more emotion. And what's interesting too is that when you read something, you're reading it with your own voice. You're hearing your own voice in your head, because how could you hear someone else's? Well, I mean, some people perhaps do. But with a podcast, you're hearing someone else's voice. So it's not just the words that you're reading and hearing, but it's the inflection of the voice. That's another layer. That's another way to, that's other information you're getting. So like if we're going to get into like data terms, it's not just the data of the words themselves. There's another layer of data there that's coming in how these words are being shared. What's interesting is that it's not only this verbal level, but when you look at another format, like video, for example, that's another layer yet. Then we get thicker, right? Because you talk about like words and then words that you can hear, words that you can hear and see. So when we go one level up and we look at films, short films, these kinds of things, the fact that you can see as well, that's another layer of data that's added on there. So it's really fascinating. And with each layer, you get deeper and deeper in terms of what you can ascertain in terms of like emotions. So for sure, before, another thing, long time ago, it's funny, long time ago, and I'm doing it in sign language because that's, what I'm going to talk about right this second. If you take the words, I'm fine, you can read the words, I'm fine. You can hear the words, I'm fine. But I can say I'm fine and say three very different things. For example, I'm fine, or I'm fine, or I'm fine. I said the same words, but I said three very different things. And so absolutely, I love this question, that when you add that layer of what you can hear or what you can see, you can say very, very different things and pull very, very different emotions. Again, just with the value of your voice. Ah, love that question. Yeah.
And there's one thing that you actually added in your speech, in your session, that where you actually inflected two different emotions, I mean two different layers in the Martin Luther King speech.
Yeah.
So, and you were saying the same words but in the held different meaning just through the intonation. And here is one thing that I have seen, that when I read this incredible book and it is good, and I want, somehow I have this urge to see it in movies. Like if text was enough for us, then maybe we wouldn't have that sort of urge to see it in movies, because visual and hearing stimulations stimulates us differently. And I think it adds a different layer of what you said about layers. It adds a different layer of human interaction, human expressions. It makes it more humane. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and it touches somewhere deep inside of us, and we can feel it more, we can be more inclined to the feelings and emotions.
Absolutely. Well, and it provides context, right? Because you have your
Exactly.
content, but then the context around it helps you understand it more. Because again, I can read in a book, I'm fine. Those two words, right? But then when I hear it, I'm fine. I can
Like you're
feel, I understand what she's really trying to say or what he's really trying to get across, right?
like they're not fine, they're just trying to get through the
Mhm.
question and get to the next part. I mean, that is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And this is a great thing. And I've seen that you are doing this incredible job, and you have this huge large spectrum. And somehow Team Bertho's works and Awareness Ties works are very similar to one another. We have this a podcast version of our show too. It's called Bertho Dollar Caravan, where it's the same thing. The human heroes is it's the stories in text form, and we have the picture of the person who shared the story. But back to Dollar Caravan, we actually recite the story, what we're trying
Yeah.
to say, and the intonation comes from, and that's how people can relate to it more. And
Hmm.
it would have been better if one day we were gonna take out these stories and make it into a movie form, so it'll add more layers of humane interaction. So that'll be
Hmm.
great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're gonna thank you very much for having this incredible interaction with me. Well, you're answering the questions, but I'm enjoying it fairly myself as well. So we're
Me too.
jumping. Yeah, so it's probably our last question for this session. It's probably, I'm not so sure. It's probably our last question. So it's again from Kanis Fatima Promi, and she asked that what to do when you know you have a good story but don't have the words to put it all together. All of us aren't the best being a writer.
Right. So, you know, again, there's a lot of ways to tell a story. I think sometimes it's very difficult to find words because, again, we're trying to force the words. Um, Sometimes when you can find something to compare it to, some sort of metaphor for the words, for the situation, I find that to be very helpful. Sometimes we're just too close to it. So I mean, this is a great question. When you don't have the words, how do you find them, right? And I think it's through going around, right? If you can't go through, like, go around. So if you don't have the words to say this, go around it. And by that I mean find other words you can use to speak to it. Find other things that are similar to it. How, like, the story that you have, how is it different from that story? Sometimes in making those sort of comparisons, we start to understand the story more. Um, so I think, if you're looking for words for a story, sometimes the best thing is to, again, just give it time, just to allow the story to happen. And there have been a number of times where I wrote something and it was like perfection right off the cuff. Like, the ink hadn't even dried and it was already incredibly perfect. And then there's been other times where I've only had to create one paragraph, and it took forever to have it make any sense, to the point where I was like, I'm not picking up the pen again. I don't deserve to write. Never again. And so it can be very frustrating, but it's taking that frustration, recognizing that, owning that, and saying, okay, giving yourself that grace to say that this story will be what it needs to be only when I allow it to be so. So again, it comes to that allowing it and not forcing it. And again, it's not about being the best writer. It's about being the writer that you are. It's about not trying to create this epic thing. Simplicity is sometimes the best, most impactful format for anything that there is. And so when we can create something with authenticity and stick to that O rating, original, organic, right? That's where we're going to find a story that not only resonates with us, but that we're able to have resonate with others. Because when you can create something in a very authentic, keeping it real, keeping it raw, and not trying to fashion it to be this good story, but rather just to be the story. It doesn't have to be good, doesn't have to be bad. It can be just the story, just be. And I think it just mirrors this sort of frustration, mirrors just our own humanity. Here we are, human beings, but we have a very difficult time just being. We always have to be doing, going, creating. We can't just be. And the moment that we find ourselves just being is the part that's the time when everything comes together, including stories.
Yeah, that is actually a very incredible perspective that you just raised, and most people don't really acknowledge that. Most of it, like, we know it, we hear it, but sometimes we don't acknowledge it because everyone is trying to create the most poetic piece ever possible. And sometimes I think when we're trying to write a story, people are just we are sometimes out of our depth in order to document the particular incident that is going inside our head, because that is another good thing about cinematography, that we can portray like 2 pages of scenery and into like one scene which is like 30 seconds long. So, and sometimes scenes are in our heads, but we can contain that particular scenery into words because we feel like we're out of our depths. But just putting it down in the most simplistic way possible can actually convey what we're trying to communicate, because that's one of the things that is important in storytelling, that if are we able to communicate what we're trying to.
I totally agree with you. And I mean, sometimes it's even just going through those exercises, that we used to when we were kids, when we learned how to write and how to create stories. It's about, the cat went away. What color was the cat? The brown cat. Was he the grumpy brown cat? So like, to start with just that basic, and then you can add layers on with your words. But then once the words are there, then with your voice audibly, then once that's there, you can go to the next level up and you can get visual with cinematography, these kinds of things. But it all starts with the cat went away with just those basic words.
Yeah, thank you very much for this amazing answer. So that was our second last question. We're having our last question right now, which is asked by Murshidul Alam Bhuiya, and he asked that what you would say if you could tell every single person in the world just one thing, like if there's something you want to convey as your mark for the rest of the people who are going to see this show today.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be 2 words. It would simply just be own it. Own it. If I may preface, or let me just package up own it a little bit for you, okay? And this is something I've shared before, but let me just share this. This will help provide the context for that content. This moment, I own it. This is my style, declared without denial, my ideal of what's real. I feel it. can't peel it off. Excuse me while I cough and say again, my friend, I own this moment and refuse atonement. For right or wrong, to me it belongs. For better, for worse, my blessing, my curse, I would not take it back. Not take another track. I won't live with regret, although, please know, I don't forget. And you can more than bet this moment is all you're ever guaranteed. Thoughts of tomorrow tend to mislead. So take this moment and own it. So that's what I mean when I say own it. I meant all that.
Did you write that poem?
I did. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
It's a long way to say own it, but that is my advice for everyone.
I think the context is important in every single case, because sometimes, like, I read a poem and I don't understand what they're talking about. So when they say the backstory, and if I hear a song and I know the backstory, it's easier to relate to and it's easier to enjoy. So thank
Yes.
you for giving us the context for your phrase owning it. But also, it's not. I'm pretty sure it's not only my opinion that everything that you said today was your mark. I mean, Money, you left your mark in everything you said today, the session, the answers that you provided for the questions, and it was completely you, organically you. And thank you for giving us the opportunity to experience this incredible, authentic moment, to share here in Ichi-go Ichi-e today. And I think there wouldn't be any better guest for this, ending episode of our season 1 Ichi-go Ichi-e. And one of your and our good friend Sonia Montiel is present in the audience section, and she just had the most beautiful comment. She said that so inspired to see Alli share her insight and wisdom on how critical storytelling is to the human experience. Thanks for having her on.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. And thank you. I love what you guys are doing. You're doing just amazing things that really resonate with everything that we're doing. And so Jack and I are so happy that we found you, and just continue to do the incredible work that you're doing. These stories that you're sharing are so important. These stories are what will shape our tomorrows and help us understand our todays and start to make sense of the yesterdays too. So thank you so much for what you do.
Yes, well, thank you for such an inspirational and kind words. I mean, your words are going to stay with us for a long, long time. And it's going to probably shape a lot of our beings, because we're still learning. And I think human experience, everyone is still learning, but we're also still learning, because, we are in a very young stage of our lives. Most of our members in Team Bertho are in the age range of 18 to 24. So we're still in a very tender age, and we're still learning. And awareness ties is a huge inspiration for us, and you are a huge inspiration for us. So thank you very much for being here, and also belated Merry Christmas, and we wish you a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, happy holidays. Thank you for being part of our family, from our family to yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, and the audience who have been with us in this episode from the beginning to the last, thank you for being here. I hope you had an incredible experience in this discussion between, Ali and you and me. And we would see you in the next year and in the next season of Ichi-go Ichi-e, hopefully very soon. And till now, stay hopeful, stay happy, and stay prosperous, and just hope for, the best thing that is yet to come. And keep learning, everyone. So thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.